Okay, thank you very much, Cedric. So a few housekeeping things. First of all, questions are encouraged. They help to add to our presentation. Please try to keep your questions related to the topic on hand. We're going to go through the entire application process, including, of course, the criteria, CEQA, etc. So if you have a CEQA question, if you could hold it till we get to CEQA, that would be great. We will monitor the chat feature throughout the webinar today, and Sam is currently showing you where the chat feature is found on your toolbar. As we monitor the chat feature, you may see a thumbs up. The thumbs up is just a way for us to communicate internally of who's going to help answer your question. We may also read out a few questions for the overall group if we feel that would be helpful for everyone. If you're having any technical issues or if you can't see the chat feature, we do recommend that you leave the meeting and then come back in. That seems to help. Or otherwise, you can email ogals@parks.ca.gov for assistance. ogals@parks.ca.gov, and we have a team ready to help you and troubleshoot to figure out what the technology issue is. There's also closed captions, so if you need closed captions, Sam is currently showing you where it is. It's the 3 dots. Click on those 3 dots, and then Sam is showing you where it says turn on live captions. This webinar is being recorded. And the next thing I'd like to show you is our program website and where you can find information on that program website. Okay, so here is the program webpage, and the first key resource for you is towards the bottom, and that is the list of competitive review project officers. These are your contacts. So you go to the very bottom of the webpage, and you'll see a link called List of Competitive Application Project Officers by County. That's the group on the left-hand column of this list. Please contact the person based on where your county project is located, and the team's looking forward to helping you. Today is not the end of technical assistance. It's just the beginning. You can take advantage of those contacts throughout the entire application process all the way until November. So please don't be shy. Take advantage of their help. The second thing is in the, you'll see the agenda. Sam will click on the agenda real quick for today. And we are currently in the top section of the agenda. I'll cover the timeline for this program, a competitive chart, and then best practices. And after that, we will go directly into the application guide, and we're going to work out of the application guide as the primary document today. Okay, so Sam, if you could please show the timeline. Thank you, Sam. So on your screen, you see the timeline. The 3 key dates are in yellow highlight. The first is July 1st, 2020. That is the start of the grant performance period, which means that if you are awarded a grant, your pre-construction costs can be reimbursed back to costs that were incurred as of July 1st, 2020. So for example, if you're going to have meetings with the public to design your project, if you are going through CEQA, permits, pre-construction design, etc., those costs going back to July 1st of 2020 are eligible for reimbursement. 23.1 million is available statewide. The next steps, we encourage you to, of course, after you go through this webinar, consider project sites. Then, if you've not yet done so, go through community-based planning. We'll cover some guidance today of community planning with COVID-19. And finally, you'll use the application guide, especially page 11, to complete your application. Okay, we recommend that you try to complete your application, try to complete the application requirements by September through October of this year, because November 5th, 2021 is the application deadline. So you do have some time. I mean, you're looking at about 10 months or so, but November 5, 2021 is the application deadline. This spring, we will have an online application system available for you. The application will be paperless, so everything will be submitted electronically, and that online application system will be on the program webpage. We anticipate making grant awards by spring of 2022. So it's roughly a 5-month review process, roughly. Now here's another key date, really important for you project planners to scope out a project. March 2025 is your target to complete the project, which allows time for a final site inspection, a 20% reimbursement of the final 20% retention of the grant amount. So 20% of the grant amount will be retained until your project's complete, and that final 20% will be reimbursed. And this allows for the final payment to be paid out by June 30, 2025. June 30, 2025 is when these funds expire. Okay, so why is that important? If you have a current project that you are considering for this program and you believe that it cannot be complete by spring of 2025, so if it can't be complete by March of 2025, there's a few options for you. Option one is scale your project down, phase it to a phase that can be complete and open to the public by March of 2025. If you cannot phase your project or scale it down, then your second option will be to come up with an entirely different project site or scope. Okay, so that's the timeline. We're going to revisit this timeline at the end of the webinar today as well, just to kind of send you off in the right direction. So there will be a recap. The next document for you is the best practices document. Okay, this is also on our webpage. Cedric mentioned that we encourage you to, be open-minded, and really the key point here is to to plan your project and use the project selection criteria in the application guide as your concept level guide. So allow the project selection criteria to guide you to plan a project, which basically really means you want to score as many points as possible. So a key today is we'll go through the project selection criteria in detail to explain how you can score as many points as possible. Some predetermined projects may be a good fit for this program, but there may be a few tweaks to your project design that you should consider to score those points. Okay. In other cases, you may have a predetermined project that you'll discover today is not a good fit at all. And if that's the case, we'll encourage you to find a different project site and a different project scope, because you do have a good amount of time. November 5th is the deadline. Sam, please go to the next page of the same document. Okay, on page 2, we have the key steps to approach this program. Again, number 1 is be open to use the application guide to plan your project. Step 2 is find a project site that best meets the intent of this program. And when we get into what's called project selection criteria number 1. That will explain what we mean by this. Step 3 is to design your project with public engagement, and we'll cover what that means when we get to project selection criteria number 4. Step 4 is to make sure that you plan your project using the timeline in the application guide to encourage you to start your pre-construction plan before grant awards. The project timeline is really designed it has about 20 different milestones that are typical for a construction project. So it helps you consider how you can overlap layers of local reviews and permits and try to get as much accomplished at the same time, so you can hit that March 2025 project completion target. And then finally, item number 5 is the application checklist on page 11 of the application guide. That lists all of your application requirements. Okay, so this is just a high-level overview document. The next document, which I think is a really handy tool for you, is called the competitive chart. Okay, so Sam has provided the competitive chart for you. It's also on our program website. And this chart is what I would call your cheat sheet. It's a 2-page list of all the key points in the application guide. So this really boils down the entire application guide into 2 pages. The chart list is organized. It is organized from the most basic things you should consider, the most fundamental requirements. That is number 1, is the applicant eligible? Okay, for this program, there's a unique geographic area that is eligible. For example, if the project is in a county that has more than 500,000 people, the project will not be eligible. So only counties, projects in counties that have less than 500,000 people are eligible. And also, I do believe nonprofits are not eligible for this program. We'll cover that when we get to page 4. But the list of eligible applicants for this program, similar to our other program, the regional park program, is different than some of our broader programs like the statewide park program. So be aware that this program has a unique list of eligible applicants, and that comes back down to the Prop 68 Bond Act language. Item 2 is you can ask for up to $3 million per application. Keep in mind that if everyone asks for $3 million, that means that we would only be able to award about 8 projects statewide. But however, there may be grants that are awarded for $3 million. You are allowed to ask for $3 million. So our key point here is that you should ask for what you need to complete your project, and that should be the most important priorities based on your community. Also, there is a 20% match if the project site's area, according to the community fact finder, has a median household income above $56,982. So we will cover that when we get to criteria number 1 as well, and when we cover the community fact finder. Item 3 is to be aware of project site ownership, acquisition, lease, or turnkey. The applicant has to have some type of site control plan. So we'll cover what that means. And then finally, again, for step 4 is to make sure that the project site is in an eligible area. The key word here is this is a rural program, so it has to be in a rural area. And we'll discuss what that means today. Number 5, this is a low population density program. So we're looking at, again, rural areas with low population density. Okay, so that gives you a feel for how this chart is organized. there are page citations in the right-hand column, which tell you where you can find more information in the application guide. But this is really designed to ensure you are clear on the most important items to get you started, and then you can get into more detail later on. The key point here too is on the far right-hand side of this chart, there's a yes, no column. Use that for your own purpose to make sure you are on track. Your goal is to get to yes for every item. We've designed this so that you should be able to get to yes for every item. If your answer is no, that's a clue to you that there's an issue that needs to be addressed. So if there's a no, you should ask yourself, what adjustments can I make to get to yes? It could be a very simple adjustment to your project design, a very minor adjustment, or it could be as significant as finding a different project site. Okay, so that covers the overview documents for you. Next is we will go to the main document, which is the application guide. And that covers my part of the overview. So let's go to the application guide and we'll jump right in. Thank you very much.